Welcome to the Ashraf Garda show.
I had a look at the Absa advert a couple of weeks back, and I quite liked it. But clearly, I was not the only one, because that same advert, part of a campaign, has also got international recognition. All got to do around Absa, the bank, and their impact and their work around COVID-19. Let's find out more about that and more, of course, with Jenny Moore, who's the head of brand and design at Absa. Jenny, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. So first of all, well done on an award, and we'll come to the acknowledgement just now. First, let's talk about the advert, what we sort of loosely call the Constitutional Hill advert. Tell me about the advert.
So we knew that we needed to do something more than just, the digital type of work that we'd been doing up until that point. We needed to get something out, a message out into the market that would have broad appeal and reach as many people as possible. But through that, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just about the message that we took out, but we saw this as an opportunity to also make an ad in a way that had meaning built into how we made it, not just what we were saying. And that's really where the idea ad at Constitution Hill, which really represented for us a space that talked about people coming together and the power of when people come together, how much change we can effect and how much positive change we can effect. And I suppose it was about absorbing that spirit of what Constitution Hill reflects for us as South Africans into the sentiment of the campaign, which was around we need to stand in solidarity through this COVID crisis that is impacting us in ways no one could have imagined. And we felt that Constitution Hill provided the environment to amplify the message that we were trying to land.
So two things come through there. One is, is it Constitution Hill, the venue chosen because of the Constitution and what it purports to deliver for South Africa, or is it also because the venue gives you a fantastic view of a certain part of Johannesburg, I think the Braamfontein area, which is where it is?
I think it's a little bit of both. So creatively, as a setting, it is the most amazing setting we could have chosen. And I think also, you'll have seen the sun setting in the background, of the ad, and I think that just gave an amplification of the poetry of what we were trying to do, and obviously tying into the slam poetry style that the ad is done in. But I think for us, particularly for the team that put this together, and in fact the directors that we worked with, there was a poetic relevance of Constitution Hill as well, and the whole campaign was about calling for social solidarity, and for us that's what's represented by in so many facets as well. So probably more relevant to us is the team making it, but I hope in some way that would have been conveyed in the message as well.
Okay, perhaps take us then through the narrative. We're going to play this on YouTube and podcast, so some people will see the advert, which we'll play later on. But for now, maybe just describe.
Was a bit of both. There was the creativity of that views, one of the most amazing views of bigger city, Johannesburg skyline, particularly at sunrise and sunset. It was the coldest day that we'd had in Johannesburg up until that time, and that icy coldness creates amazing visuals. So the light worked with us, and it was an amazing experience. But I think, especially for the team that was involved, but I hope some of this came through in the message as well, was for us, Constitution Hill talks about social solidarity and the people, the power of people coming together for change. And that was an incredibly important metaphor for us in shooting the campaign at Constitution Hill, that this was about a call to action for South Africans to please come together and help us deal with the challenges that are presented through this COVID-19 crisis.
Okay, so this platform is broadcast both for YouTube and then audio on podcast only. So we'll play the advert later on, but let's for those who can't watch it, describe the actual advert and the entire narrative. Take us through that.
Absolutely. So For us, we decided to take a very different, quite a brave step and use something called slam poetry as a style. And it's a very urban, raw form of poetry. And Sbu, our character, and we only have one character in the ad, is a young South African poet, and he's got an amazing personal story as well. And we just thought that he was the perfect fit for what we wanted to convey as Absa. And the poetry was written by our creative team, and Sbu just took it and made it his own in his very powerful delivery. The main ad was shot at the very top of Constitution Hill, right on the ridge at the top. And we actually did shoots both at sunrise and sunset to see which was, give us some options to play around with. I must be honest, for the crew, being on site on the coldest day in Johannesburg of the year at 4 a.m. was quite a personal contribution to this. But I think the end result really paid off. We were exceptionally happy with the outcome of that. And then the sub-elements of the message were shot at different parts of the Constitution Hill precinct. So leveraging some of the power of the big concrete structures to really echo back the message. And so the different parts of the story we takes the viewer through different parts of the precinct, talking about our specific campaigns around raising funds for personal protective equipment, feeding South Africans through the feeding schemes that we're as well as the testing drive, because at that point in time, testing was still a major issue. In fact, the poetry talks to making testing a right, not a privilege, and making sure that we could get testing out to all the communities that need it. And so those were three sub-elements of the story, and they were shot at different parts of the precinct. But the overarching message really takes place right on top of the hill with a magnificent Johannesburg skyline. And the one we decided to take to air was shot at sunset.
And then the actual messaging, I mean, share with us some of the words that we use in terms of the message being portrayed from Sbu to those who watch it.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, one of the most powerful lines in the poem, and I can't do it justice the same way Sbu does, but it was about feeding the stomachs and the souls of our people. And I think for me, that was the most poignant, pivotal part of the whole message, was about saying, understanding that there are people right now who are in dire need, who have no food as the most basic of human rights. Let's come and stand together and make sure that no one goes to bed hungry. At the time as well, there was a big call from the health department, from government departments to support the drive to access quality personal protective equipment, and that was about keeping our frontline people safe. And again, the poetry talks to, let's keep the people at the front line safe while they are keeping us safe. And likewise, making testing a right, not a privilege. And those particular words formed, those are sort of three anchors to the poetry. The hardest was, filling the stomachs and the souls of our people. Because I think that's the anchor of our humanity. And that's what we really try to do as a brand as well.
And even as you repeat it now, not as good as the slam poet himself, but certainly it resonates, right? How, the overall message that you'd want to make, some may say, but Absa is a financial services brand, they're a bank. What message are they trying to send out, and why would they want to send out that message?
As through this whole crisis, Absa's been doing everything possible it can. Institutions, the NGO community, as well as governments, in addressing this crisis and dealing with the very raw issues, while we've also been trying to make sure that our people, our own colleagues and staff are taken care of. But I think there's a really important thing that's emerged out of COVID-19 crisis is this is not something that any one person can do on their own. We have to stand together as a community, as society. And it's when we put our collective efforts together that we can amplify the impact. And that was really the key message here, was when you think about Africanacity, which is Absa's word really that we created at launch, it is about saying let's use our creativity, our tenacity, our ingenuity to find ways to get things done. And for us, the finding the way to get things done was to say, yes, we're doing our part as a bank. But actually, if we all stand together and we all contribute and we work together, imagine how much more we can get done in addressing the issues of COVID-19. And that was the big call to action here, was about bring your creativity, bring your ingenuity and tenacity, work with us, and let's find a way to get through this together.
And for this particular ad, your choice of character and the choice of ad agency, who are they?
So Grid Worldwide is our agency. They've been working with us on the new Absa since its infancy in 2017, before we even launched. So they've walked a long journey with us. And so when it was time to craft this campaign, we turned to our trusted partners, and it really was the creative team's genius in coming up with this idea that just floored us. We were so excited by the potential.
What was the response from the public?
So I think at the time, so many people were going out with messages asking, please donate, please do this. There was a lot of pressure on people to step up. And I must say many South Africans have done that. As a piece of creative work, we've had very positive feedback around it. It's tested well. Creatively, and we feel that looking at the social media response to the campaign as well, we've had very positive feedback around it. It's also been a really important motivating tool for our colleagues, and it's made them feel proud to work for Absa and be part of a process and a program that's trying to make a positive impact.
Okay, and talking about impact and positivity, then you get a global award for this. Tell me about what award is it and why?
So it's the Euromoney Award for Leadership in Africa, and it was based on Absa's response to the COVID-19. And although we're having this conversation based in Johannesburg, our response has really been across all 12 markets that we have a presence in. This wasn't a South African thing, shall I say. And there's only 6 financial organizations in the world that have received this recognition from Euromoney. It's one of the sort of global awards programs that run every year. And we're really honored to be recognized for the integrated approach in which we have taken. It's been about making sure our people are safe, secure, and cared for, doing whatever we can to support communities, and then strengthening both social institutions as well as government institutions wherever we can in this combined effort against the COVID-19 pandemic.
So the award is more for a sense of activism by the bank, by Absa, as compared to the advert, and the advert is just one part of it, right? Were you surprised at that level of international acknowledgement? I mean, you like it, obviously, but were you surprised at it?
I suppose we don't do these kind of things with that award in mind. We actually didn't know that award was a category this year. We've been part of the Euromoney Awards on other in other categories before, so it came as a very big surprise to us. Obviously, really humbled and honoured by it. But I think at the heart of it, whether or not there was an award, we were still going to do what we've done, and we're just glad that we've been acknowledged for it, because often, banks being banks, we not always hold the most positive light in people's minds. And I think particularly through this crisis, the financial impact, banks have often been seen as in a negative. And this for me is just one of those acknowledgements of, actually, this is a bank doing something outside of the day-to-day and having a social impact and delivering on its commitment to playing a shaping role in Africa's growth and sustainability, which is really important to us.
What would you say to someone who says, we understand what you're doing and you try to do it and you spend money on the campaign and a whole lot of other activations around NGOs, but perhaps the best way Absa can help is simply to assist people. Thousands already bank with Absa, and I know you've given them some terms in terms of home loans, but not just that. There could be small businesses, there could be people who are unemployed. Maybe that's simply the best way to help. Forget about campaigns. What would you say to someone like that?
So I think it's a balance, and it's not an either or. I think that purpose put into action is a combination of messaging, so telling people what we're doing and garnering support. As a result of that campaign, just the response from our own colleagues in terms of the amount that our own colleagues have brought to the table towards supporting social issues through the COVID crisis. The amount of leave that was donated and encashed and donated towards this was really part of this bigger campaign, and you need to have conversations with people around that. I think at the same time, we've also done we were one of the first banks to also offer payment relief programs. We went off right at of the period in all our markets. And so I think there's a role for marketing and there's a role for business action. And hopefully we've met that balance.
Tell me, therefore, as we conclude about the role of Absa and where it's positioned as a financial services or bank, not just in South Africa, but of course around the continent. Tell me about that.
So this journey started obviously quite a while ago, and we took it to market in 2018. I think our intent is to become a more purpose-led brand and a more purpose-led organization. It's a word that's thrown around a lot, and it gets abused quite a lot, in my opinion. I think a purpose-led organization and a purpose-led brand is about doing more than saying and delivering through your action. So when we started this journey, we recognized that there was a need across the continent, and we took a continental view of this to say that there is a lot of hope and optimism, despite our darkest days on this continent, about the potential of the people, the potential of the communities and the countries that we operate in as an organization. And we call that possibility. And we want to play an active role in bringing that possibility to life. That's what we see as our purpose. And the way that we've tried to communicate through our brand is to say that Africanacity means finding ways to get things done that bring you closer to realizing what you think is possible. Each of us has a different view of what is possible in our lives, in the places where we operate, work, live. And we want to be part of helping people realize that possibility, bring it to life. But it's not about hopes and dreams of the future. And we're not talking about, one day maybe. We believe that possibility is brought to life by every small action we do today to get us one step closer to that. And that's really something that we've been trying to take to markets. Recently just taken it out into other markets this year and concluded that brand rollout. And I think what Africanacity allows us to do as a message around possibility, to bring possibility to life, is it allows us to recognize the Africanacity in others and celebrate what other people are doing, those ingenious ideas that we're so good at on this continent. And it allows us to celebrate that. It allows us to partner with others to, where we see their tenacity and creativity and say, well, let's work together to make something happen, like we did with this campaign. And then it's also about the things that we do on a daily basis as an organization to bring our customers and clients and colleagues closer to what they believe is possible.
So I certainly was at the launch of Africanacity, and I certainly covered it on other media. And I have to tell you, as a consumer, that name or that phrase is stuck in my mind. So you've certainly got me to thinking about Africanacity whenever I see it. So well done to you guys. But are you disappointed, to a degree that Africanacity has not become a byword? Certainly in South Africa, where I'm now, but perhaps people are watching in other parts of the African continent, a byword like, think about Ayoba, which is what MTN did around the time of the 2010 World Cup, where everybody sort of gotten onto it, even if they don't quite get the brand. Are you disappointed that hasn't happened? That means the word Africanacity is not being quoted as part of day-to-day vocabulary, like we talk about, say, Ubuntu, for example.
I think we've also got to be realistic about how people engage with the category of banking and banking, advertising, and messaging. I think we've also got to recognize that it's still quite new. It's relatively, it's 2 years in South Africa. It's a couple of months in many of our other markets. So I think I've seen little places, particularly in social media, where people have used it. And it always surprises me and delights me when I see that. But yes, I think ultimately one day we'd love for it to become part of common language. But even if it isn't, it doesn't mean we're not going to continue with it, because I think it epitomizes what we as an organization are about. And I think as the new Absa and the new Absa brand continue to grow across this continent, I'm hopeful that Africanacity will grow with it.
Well, I may just tweet about it and talk about Africanacity and see who catches on to that one. That's where we leave it, Jenny Moore. Looking forward to what happens next with Absa, not just in South Africa, the continent, maybe beyond that as well. Appreciate your input.
Thank you so much.
Let's bring it. Let's feed the stomachs and the souls of our people. Show the front line that we've got their back, and ensure testing is not a privilege, but a right, because we can bring anything if we bring it together.